Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Lap Down podcast. I am your host, Greg Farmer, and tonight we have Jayme, Tyler, and Ryan. How are we doing tonight, boys?
Doing pretty good, man.
Doing fantastic.
That is awesome to hear. As always, we like to thank our band, The Alkali Project, for the intro and outro music on this show. Before we get started, I just want to take a real quick moment to say, we here at the Lap Down are fully aware of all of the damage and destruction that was caused by Hurricane Helene in the southeastern United States, especially in the western North Carolina area and eastern Tennessee and down in the Big Bend area of Florida. We just want you guys to know, if you're listening, if you happen to come across this podcast, that our thoughts and prayers are with you, and we hope that you guys get back on your feet very, very soon. I know there's a lot of rescue efforts going on out there, and there's a lot of people taking supplies and a lot of stuff up to those people that need them. So just know that we're thinking about you guys. I'm going to jump right in. We got a big breaking news story today. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports have filed a lawsuit against NASCAR over the charter agreement and antitrust claims. They claim that NASCAR is a monopoly system that is trying to keep teams from gaining revenue from the sport, and they believe that they could gain more revenue in what is now a competitive market versus what is the current charter agreement. But yet they have filed or are going to file injunctions to be able to race in 2025 under the charter agreement while the case is being resolved. I haven't really had a whole lot of time to go through all of this because there's a lot of information that came out today. So I'm going to let Ryan start us off. What do we think about this?
Yeah, so again, the first thing from what I've seen is that their biggest claim is that essentially NASCAR with the, and a lot of this is going back to that, early September, I think it was like September 7th or whatever, when they did the big 100-page document drop where they're just like, yep, sign this. You have essentially 7 hours to sign this or you'll not be a part of the charter agreement going forward. And talking about how this is supposedly a tactic that NASCAR is using to try and bully the NASCAR Cup Series teams around. And again, by monopolizing between how many of the tracks they own, the fact that they've now bought up ARCA in recent years, and have essentially monopolized the entire world of stock car racing for the most part at the professional level. Obviously, a series like SRX going away certainly doesn't help that public perception either.
No, it does not. I got a question. I mean, so we all know that Denny Hamlin co-owns 2311, but Michael Jordan is the other co-owner for 2311. Now, that's a big name in this lawsuit.
And that's where a lot of the funding, I'm sure, is coming from to fight this lawsuit.
Right. So with Michael Jordan being involved in this, does he bring a lot of firepower to this case? And what do you think this what kind of look does this give NASCAR that you have a driver who is also an owner involved in this lawsuit?
Well, and that's a weird one because obviously Denny Hamlin and the team he drives for have already signed the contract. So Denny Hamlin himself will be able to race in NASCAR next year regardless because he's drives for Joe Racing despite owning another team, which has always been an awkward situation, and especially as contract negotiations have started to come up because he has essentially an ear in the door to anything Joe Gibbs gets invited to, regardless of whether they invite 2311 or not.
Yeah.
But
Um,
another thing that I think is getting that might be a little bit overlooked, especially with everything that's going to be coming out, is the fact that the lawyer on the side of 2311 and Front Row Motorsports is the same guy who negotiated and started up the NIL program for college athletes to be able to make money off their name, image, and likeness, which is what the NIL stands for.
oh wow, I didn't know it was the same guy.
Yeah, and he said on Twitter publicly that he feels like this is the most egregious case of monopolization that he's ever seen. Now, how much of that is projecting fake confidence and how much of that is it being accurate? I guess we'll have to wait and see how it goes.
Yeah. Jayme, I know you said before we went on there that you really didn't know that this was happening today, but now that you've got some information, how do you feel about it?
I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like all teams should have a fair shot at getting charters. I don't know if this is just one of those scenarios where 2311 feels like they're not getting a fair shake at getting a charter to expand their teams. And
But 2311
obviously,
does have a charter. Sorry to jump in, but 2311 does have a third charter that I think everybody has kind of been completely unaware to. But Bob Cocker tweeted out a couple hours ago that both of these teams have signed charters, have bought charters from Stuart Haas and have finalized those deals. The 2311 one was finalized back on August 7th.
yeah. I mean,
I was
I don't know.
about that.
It's just different to hear. I know you were talking about before we started recording about just how tight knit NASCAR likes to keep everything. How you manage to get a link to the whole rule package, like all the rules of NASCAR, but you couldn't really view anything because it needed a NASCAR login.
Yeah, it directs you to a login screen. Yep.
But I think it could have a trickling effect, right? Like if this gets out of hand, it could be a big problem for NASCAR when it comes to sponsorship, when it comes to the benefits of teams and drivers, and then the fan base, like creating that narrative of antitrust.
Well, yeah, and especially
so this could be
other
very
changes.
sticky.
Well, and especially now that we kind of know what we know, looking back, hindsight obviously being 2020, in recent weeks, we've seen NASCAR lose their first premier partner of NASCAR. Geico will no longer be at that premier level in terms of sponsorship. And NASCAR has now turned over their exclusive ticketing rights to Ticketmaster as well, which, as we all know, that is going to be a ton of fees.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more expensive to get to a race.
Yep. Now, granted, most of my times going to the races has been through Ticketmaster anyway, so for me, I guess it won't change a ton because most of the tracks I go to are already partnered with Ticketmaster, but
yeah, I've always dealt with just the track, and at least with Dover, you can still go and to the office and literally pick up your tickets.
Yep.
Well, one of the questions that I have about this whole thing is, we know that 13 of the 15 teams signed this agreement back in September, and we talked about, after it happened that, some people were calling it like, they held a gun to our head and forced us to sign it and stuff like that. Like, I'm wondering, we still really don't know exactly everything that was in this agreement. What did Denny Hamlin and Bob Jenkins see that made them not sign that the other teams maybe didn't see and they still signed it anyways?
Well, and that's weird because to that specific example, and specifically I'm going to use Front Row here because I think 2311 is a little bit of a different case, but in Front Row's case, they're a small team with very few employees. If there was a team that was going to miss something, I would expect it to be a JTG Doherty or a Front Row Motorsports that would miss something. And I would imagine that a Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing, a Penske would have been the one to maybe see something. Now, maybe Denny Hamlin and Jordan saw something, considering their side almost certainly has more employees and the money to find something. But again, if there was a team to get duped, I would expect it to be a smaller team like Front Row.
Yeah. Tyler, what are you thinking about all this today?
Mute Monster might have got him.
Yeah, I think, well, he's working, so he may be just muted right now.
Oh, okay.
For something, but yeah, I think going back though to the fact of the 13 of the 15 teams, and in particular looking at the sheer number of charters, that's 30 of the 36 charters that are spoken for and signed for between those 13 teams that have signed on. I think that will be a significant thing to, well, you are the only two people that seem to find issue with this. And again, we don't even know what they have an issue with yet.
Now, another question would be, excuse me. I mentioned earlier that both Front Row and 2311 filed an injunction to race under the charter agreement in 2025 while they're resolving the case. What happens if NASCAR rejects that injunction? Do they not race, or do they race as open cars?
So, as far as I'm aware, this injunction means that they will be permitted to race, considering they do own the charters, through it, and essentially so if they lose the court case, they are still able to basically, and as far as I know, if they, for whatever reason, do lose the case, they will essentially just sign on to the current charter agreement. At least that's what it sounds like is going to happen. So if and when they lose the charter or the talk, they will at least have a 1-year extension onto their charters.
Okay, so they would still be allowed to race.
As far as I'm aware, again, I don't know because there's a lot of court documents and I have not been able to read through everything. Oh, Tyler there?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry about that.
You're good. We were asking about your thoughts about this whole lawsuit thing.
Personally, I actually kind of like with all of you guys, like, what's the really benefit for either side on the lawsuit?
Well, yeah, that's the biggest thing, and we kind of talked about this before we went on the air. But the only real thing the teams can gain by winning this lawsuit is money, because the courts cannot force NASCAR to adopt a infinite charter system. The courts cannot force NASCAR to do anything other than pay out essentially a cash money deal. So it's not like the charter. So I don't know what they expect the courts to be able to do outside of get the money to.
Right.
And again, from what I've heard, it sounds like they also want compensation for a poor revenue split over the last 8 years of the charter deal, even though, Front Row Motorsports is the only team of these two that was around for the original of the deal.
Back in 2016, yeah.
And ultimately, and this is where I think I've come into the biggest question, is that the nature of competition is that it's always opt-in. You have the option to opt-in or opt-out of rules. And you can protest, and if you want to protest that rules are unfair, you can abstain from competing. But if 2311 or Front Row were to try and abstain from competing, there'd almost certainly be a team looking to fill that spot.
Like, the thing is what team would, I mean, there'll be like junior motorsports will probably hop up and do something like that. But the thing is like,
Yeah,
I
junior
understand.
motorsports could hop up. It could be a situation where maybe Toyota as a manufacturer might look to try and help elevate Tricon Garage so that they can have another Toyota team still to fill the place of 2311 if 2311 were to sit out.
My like 100% personal opinion on this is, I get that the Chargers aren't fair and that they're really dumb and that NASCAR forced them to sign it.
For the most part, they are fair because, again, it's an opt-in system. If you don't want
Right.
to be locked into the rules of the charters, and
that's a valid point.
Comparing it to, because when we talk about charters, we don't have to look very far. We look over at IndyCar side of things. There's only 2 open spots for open cars, and charter teams over there can actually end up filling those extra 2 spots by just bringing a 4th or 5th car to the track in addition to their 3 chartered entries. At least in NASCAR, the chartered teams that are already at 4 charters can't bring a 5th or 6th car to try and fill up those 4 open spots that anyone could fill.
Which makes some sense.
Yeah. And again, it keeps it open that, hey, if you don't want to opt into the charter agreement, you can still race for those open spots.
You're just not going to be guaranteed a starting spot.
Yeah, you won't be guaranteed a starting spot. You'll have to compete against whoever else shows up. But realistically, we haven't seen a full field and bumping at tracks outside of the Daytona 500 in years.
I think it's been almost 15 years. 15 years, something like that's actually happened.
On that point, we do have a full 40-car grid this weekend for Talladega.
Well, yeah, I figured because Talladega is Talladega.
Well, but as I said, I mean, we don't know. It's not usually a guarantee that we get 40 cars at Talladega, and certainly it's not very common that we see bumping.
But a full 40-car field's going to be. But my problem with the fact that like they didn't agree with this. I mean, I don't think the lawsuit was very necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some people say that maybe the lawsuit was just a way to try and scare NASCAR back to the negotiation table to reopen their 100-page document and submit a revised version. I don't know how possible that is or even what the repercussions would be if NASCAR decides to go back and rewrite the agreement that 13 of the 15 have already agreed to.
I mean, like, guys like Hendrick obviously Hendrick and Penske because they have the biggest pockets.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you've got your big teams and all of them signed it.
Because I honestly think it's the game of who has the biggest pockets. Is literally what it's that. If I'm down to.
Yeah, and again, that's why I think if this was just a front row motorsports thing, I don't think we'd be seeing a lawsuit because, again, I think it's Michael Jordan's money that's funding the ability to fight this lawsuit and pay the lawyer fees.
I mean, what is this lawsuit going to do to the races? Have they told it? Let us know on anything? Is the lawsuit going to affect the rest of the season?
It shouldn't affect this current season outside of potentially just being a major distraction for the 2311 organization, the Front Row Motorsports organization.
Which Tyler Reddick
obviously Denny Hamlin's playoff run.
Well, yeah, since Tyler Reddick's on the verge of being eliminated.
Huh? He's not on the verge of being eliminated anymore.
I thought he was below the cut line.
He survived he survived the first round, and I thought he is below the cut line. I thought after he won the regular season championship and all that, I thought he was like the second or third seed, and then he scraped by in round 1. But then all those playoff points would go right back.
He had a shit race at Kansas. I think he recovered to finish like top 15, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, he had a bad race at Kansas. Yeah, that's why he's so far down the list. He finished like 30. He was the one and only playoff driver that finished worse than, he finished one spot better than Larson in 25th.
I mean, Larson had a shit day too.
So I completely forgot that we actually had a race in this round. I thought we had just had the elimination round. Goes to show how chaotic the sport's been the last couple of weeks.
All right, let's move on now. I'd like to get on to the next topic, kind of.
Well, I was going to throw in one more thing. It's kind of long, so bear with me here.
You're good. Don't worry.
This is from a source on Twitter. It says, for those wondering what 2311 and Front Row Motorsports are looking to gain out of this lawsuit, quote, the amount of damages suffered by plaintiffs has not been yet ascertained. Pursuant to Section 4 of the Clayton Act, plaintiffs are entitled to recover from defendants treble the amount of actual damages as well as an award of reasonable attorneys' fees and costs of suit. Defendants' violation of Section 2 of the Sherman Act is a continuing violation causing new injury to plaintiffs as defendants continue to engage in new overt acts to maintain their monopoly power and then exercise that power to impose anti-competitive terms of doing business on plaintiffs. Plaintiffs seek damages for their past 4 years of antitrust injury from defendants' Section 2 violations, plus all damages that they will continue to suffer in the future until defendant Section 2 violations are enjoined. So basically, in summary, it says they want NASCAR to be found in violation of Section 1 and 2 of the Sherman Act. Want NASCAR to let 2311 and Front Row Motorsports out of Section 10.3 of the new charter agreement, allowing them to race next year without signing the agreement while this litigation is pending. The court to declare Section 10.3 as invalid as a matter of law, and for NASCAR to be permanently enjoined from further violations of the antitrust laws. A lot of fancy-schmancy legal jargon in that.
Fancy schmancy jibber jabber.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but, and then here's actually one of the rules that was kind of brought up as one of the things that kind of goes to show that the NASCAR people have been unfairly kind of bullying the teams around, and this is a rule. I hadn't actually read the letter of it. It basically says that it is up to NASCAR and the chassis suppliers to decide whether or not a chassis can be rebuilt after a race or if it needs to be retired and they take another one of their maximum 7 allotted chassis off the shelf. So the teams don't get to decide whether or not they retire a chassis or not. It's up to NASCAR and the chassis builder.
All right. Well, this is going to be a long and bumpy road for the two sides. I'm sure we'll get more, topics to talk about, probably most likely during the off season. But we're going to jump to our next topic. NASCAR is making changes to the aerodynamics to prevent the cars from getting upside down so easily. As we've seen, we've had a couple of blowovers the last few weeks. We had Corey LaJoie, Michigan. We had Josh Berry at Daytona. So the original proposed idea was the shark fin that they put on the right side of the car right before the summer Daytona race. They wanted to run that up across the roof and down the right side of the front windshield. Now, I guess my guess is it would probably be like a clear piece of like glass or something like that.
It would have to be clear, otherwise that would create a massive blind spot out the front windshield.
Right, but the drivers did explain that it would most likely cause visibility issues. So instead they went back to the wind tunnel, and they're going to add like I'm hoping I'm getting this wording right. They're going to add fabric to the right side hinge of the roof flaps, to, I guess, block air more. They're going to add rocker skirts on the right sides of the car, on I guess the bottom, like side skirts, I guess you could say.
Yep.
They're going to extend the roof rail an additional 2 inches. They put that shark fin on the right side of the car right before Daytona, and as we can see, it didn't work. It did create a little bit better racing at the plate track there at Daytona, but Josh Berry still ended up getting upside down. Jayme, how do we feel about them adding all of this new stuff to keep these cars from getting up and over?
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely one of those situations where you got to look at driver safety, and with these cars, we've seen them get airborne when they shouldn't have gone airborne. So I think it's the right direction. When it comes to the right type of move, I don't know. I don't know if this is exactly what is needed, but I am glad that that they've obviously seen a flaw in how they built the car, and they're trying to make the adjustment to make sure that these cars stay right side up and on the track, as opposed to hitting a piece of the draft wrong and flipping.
What about you, Ryan?
Uh-oh. Robotic Ryan Dyer is happening again. But as far as like the other thing that I was thinking until Ryan gets his connection issues figured out, when it comes to these cars, like I can see how some people could be scared about how this could affect the driving and the speeds and all that when it comes to the actual racing piece. I mean, they've already had issues with trying to pass in dirty air. How is that extra panel going to affect the drafting on the track? That could be another concern.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned, they did put that shark fin on right before Daytona, and in the Daytona 500 and the first Talladega race, before the shark fin, the only way you could get 3 wide is if you were saving fuel. And they made a third lane work most of the race in the summer Daytona race, and they weren't saving fuel at all. They were actually like racing. So I think that extra shark fin helped with the racing product. Now, we don't know what these extra variables are going to provide on Sunday. I guess we'll just have to see. But I guess Ryan, you back with us?
He's trying to get it figured out.
All right. Well, I'm gonna throw it over to Tyler.
It looks like he's trying to speak, but for some reason his
My personal opinion, no matter what they do, you're not going to prevent a car from crashing and flipping. No matter what you do. Look at Formula One. They have measures to prevent flipping, and they still flip. NASCAR, they're going to add these things, but I just don't see them working as well as people think they do. If you think about it, cars are going to crash. They're going to roll over. It's all part of the sport. They're trying to, I get it, trying to prevent it, like, from less from happening, but I just don't think, no matter what they do, unless you have a fan literally sucking that car to the ground, there's no physical possible way other than that to have the car not flip.
Ryan's still sounding like a robot over there.
What do you guys think of that? You guys agree with that?
Well, I mean, yes, I agree with to an extent. I get, in the sight of driver safety, you want to prevent the cars from getting upside down. I get that. But flipping in NASCAR has been a product of the sport for 75 and a half years now. There's like no way around it. And a lot of drivers complain about flipping over. There are some that say they would rather flip over than hit a wall head on. Josh Berry kind of got, a double whammy at Daytona. He was upside down and then hit the wall head on while he was upside down. I kind of feel like, NASCAR maybe had a hand in this trying to fix it, but I feel like the drivers may have backed them into a corner as far as like, hey, you guys need to fix this so we don't get upside down anymore because we don't like getting upside down. Well, you signed the contract to get in the car. You know the risks involved. Just, deal with it, I guess.
Well, at the same time, though, like we see uncommon things happening with these new cars, where they're flipping for no reason, as opposed to in the past where if they were like in a wreck and they were already sideways and they ended up hitting like the apron or something like that, then they would start flipping. These cars are flipping just from aerodynamics and not necessarily things that were not normal things that we're used to seeing on the track. That would be a contributing factor to these cars turning upside down.
Yeah. I granted Corey LaJoie's flip at Michigan was very bizarre because he just kind of grazed off of Gregson and got sideways and he blew right over. I understand that, but Josh Berry was a product of an actual crash. Like he got door slammed by Cindric as Cindric was spinning, and then he got sideways and ended up upside down. But I get where you're coming from. Is Ryan back with us, or is he still? I guess not.
Poor Ryan.
I feel so bad for him. Ryan's like the Jordan Bianchi right now. He's having internet troubles.
I won't tell him you said that.
If we got to come back to this a little later once Ryan gets fixed, we can. But we're gonna move on. They raced at Kansas this past weekend, and we all saw the last time they raced in Kansas, they had the closest finish in NASCAR history. That was not the case this weekend, although the race was very, very decent, very good race. The Melon Man is back in victory lane.
Melon Man!
Ross Chastain grabbed his first victory of 2024 after Kyle Busch crashed late trying to lap Chase Briscoe. William Byron finished second, finally gaining some momentum, getting into the playoffs. And Alex Bowman continues his playoff surge. He won stage 2 and came home. I think he was top 5 in stage 1 and came home with a 6th place finish. The main topic of this is for the last few weeks, we've seen this story time and time again of Kyle Busch being in race-winning contention and something happening to him late. Is he being too aggressive at trying to win? Jayme? Jayme, you got me?
Mute Monster got me.
All right, you're good.
No, not having the same issues that Ryan's having. I promise you that.
All right, you're good.
But when it comes to Kyle Busch, you gotta put yourself in the mindset of a veteran driver like Kyle Busch, and understanding that the clock is ticking. I know he feels like he still has some racing left in him, but all of the guys from his era of NASCAR are slowly dwindling away. there's only maybe like one or two that are still on from when he was in his what I would call prime of racing. But
Yep.
he's also experiencing one of the longest winless droughts that he's ever had in his career. So yes, I think he is driving a little more too aggressive, but I think more than that is just getting that mental hurdle of just questioning if you can do it. Can you get that win? Are you as good as you believe that you are? All those mental blockers creates more pressure, and when there's more pressure, you tend to make more mistakes.
Yep.
So I think it's just a toll of the winless streak that is taking place on Kyle Busch, because before he could make rowdy moves and be A-okay because he knew he's had wins. He's got that confidence. His confidence is not there. He's feeling the pressure. He has a high standard for himself, and it's all mental with him.
Yeah. What about you, Tyler?
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We can hear
Okay,
you.
that's
Yay!
I had said that like 4 times and got no response, so I wasn't sure.
We can hear you now. Want to give
All
your, I don't know if you heard my question about Kyle Busch. Is he being too aggressive since he's been in these race-winning conditions and having problems late?
Well, I actually want to go back to the aero thing for a minute because I was trying to say something, but clearly Discord doesn't want me to say it. Yeah, but I think Tyler said something along the lines before I started popping in and out, constantly trying to get it to connect, but genuinely, I think Michigan, the flip that we saw at Michigan where, who was it? Was it LaJoy that went just straight up in the air and over with minimal contact? Jayme, you there? Somebody?
Yeah. Sorry,
Okay, I'm just trying to confirm. Which driver was it that went up and over at Michigan with like next to no contact? Was it LaJoy?
I think so.
Okay, yeah, you're just the only person with an unmuted mic that I could actually. But yeah, so that one I think was the only incident where you really could have theoretically said, yeah, that definitely should be a crash that's preventable. The 2 flips that we saw at Daytona both had outside factors that was not aerodynamics that caused those cars to get up in the air. With McDowell, it was contact with multiple different race cars that got him up in the air at Daytona while leading the pack there. And then with Josh Berry, or whoever it was down the back straightaway, whichever SHR car it was, yeah, the factor that got him up in the air was the fact that the splitter blade dug into the grass and sent him up into the air. And barring making this car twice as heavy or a massive spoiler, and even a massive spoiler, I don't think that keeps that car on the ground either.
Well, the thing is with Barry, though, at Daytona on the backstretch, there's no grass on the backstretch anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot less of it, but there was some, and that's, cause he was sliding right along, and then he dug in, I thought. Or am I thinking of last year's crash with, Priest?
You're
the
thinking
other
of
SHR
Priest.
car.
Yeah, you're thinking of Priest. When Barry got upside down, he got hit by Cindric as he was spinning. When Barry got sideways, he lifted up and landed upside down and slid for about almost 1,000 feet and then hit the inside wall head on while he was upside down.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just another one of those things though. I mean, contact, and I mean, ask any driver with how these cars are sealed to the ground, anything that breaks that seal and these cars take off like the wing of an airplane because of how aerodynamic they have to be to drive 180, 190 miles an hour in the pack. I mean, the one and only thing that maybe you could try and do to try and limit that would be to raise the front, the height, the minimum ride height, make the ride height in the front way higher, but then you lose a ton of downforce and speed.
Yeah.
And obviously less speed means less chance of an airborne crash. But we also don't want to see them slow these cars down to 80, 90 miles an hour for a race pace. I mean, honestly, watching the restarts at Daytona last month, or 2 months ago now, like the cars just felt so slow at that track on the restarts.
Yeah, it did take them a minute to get up to speed.
Yeah. And
I
obviously
sat
once
down.
they're at speed, it
Funny
was
part
good.
is they were literally the same horsepower. They just changed the aerodynamics.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like it's something that it's something that you could have definitely seen in some of the other ones, like the Daytona 500 had a similar factor. It's just one of those things that obviously you think back to the most recent race, and yeah, it was very evident in that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then your other question you said was about Kyle Busch and whether he's going too hard or not.
Yeah,
I think
so we were talking about him crashing late while leading, and was asking if we've seen him in these being in contention here lately, and then something happens late in the race. Is he being like too aggressive, like pushing too hard?
Well, if you're asking specifically about the Kansas thing, I don't think so. I think even though I know there was no actual contact from Briscoe, yeah, I think the fact that he squeezed the air up there and clearly was demonstrated by him doing the exact same thing 2 minutes later in the middle of the pack and taking out another bunch of cars right after it. I think it is very much, it's an aerodynamic thing, similar to when people got mad at Stenhouse because he would push on the corner of cars at Daytona. What was it, 2018 or 2019? He was pushing on like the corner of the car, and it ended up spinning out 3 drivers in between the Clash and the Daytona duels that he was in.
Thus the name Ricky Wreckhouse became popular.
Well, no, that became popular in the summer race when he wasn't responsible for the first wreck, and then he went and got into Kyle Busch trying to side draft him. Because that's when that nickname came about.
Yep.
But there was 1 year at Daytona though that he was just doing something that nobody really understood why it was getting the cars so unsteady, but it was, and yeah, he just had to, for the race, he just had to get himself. He just had to stop pushing on the corner of the cars as much. And similarly, I think Briscoe learned or is in the process of learning a similar thing on the 1.5 miles where you can't squeeze that air up in front of people and expect them to be able to hold on to it.
Well, it's funny that you bring up Chase Briscoe because that was going to be my next question. Was Chase Briscoe at fault for this crash, or was he just doing what he needed to? Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was actually going to say something about the question. Sorry about that. I wanted to add on to it. I think they're both at fault. One's racing too hard to get back on the lead lap to get the good points for playoffs. Or no, Briscoe's out, isn't he?
No, Briscoe made it through. I posted about him, so he definitely made it through.
Well, okay, so Briscoe made it through, trying to stay on the lead lap to get as much points. Kyle Busch pushing too hard. He got too close to him and got aero loose, which got his car sideways, and he slapped the wall, and that's what caused him to...
I mean, as a racing driver, you can't just back off at that point, though, and just let the other drivers get to you because, this guy's blocking hard.
I mean, I get it. But, I mean, Chase Briscoe, I get it. Kyle Busch is not a playoff driver, and he wanted to stay on the lead lap. But at the end of the day, would you rather get to take the lap down? I mean, how many laps to go was it when it happened? Because I didn't catch in the entire race.
There's about 30 laps to go.
So with 30 laps to go, it's all or nothing, and I get it. Kyle Busch is pushing hard. Chase Briscoe is pushing hard. Briscoe is probably at the back of the pack. He wasn't going to make it. He should have let Kyle Busch by and then tried to race Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, if you let him by, fall in line behind him, draft along with him, and then when he catches more lap cars, potentially use that as a way to go and pass him back, would be a way to
For the
potentially
lead lap,
play
yeah.
that. Because again, the only difference between being on the lead lap and being off the lead lap is if you get a caution, you get to restart near the front versus having to start tailing the longest line.
But at the same time, one other
And that's
factor,
only if we had a caution. And we've been green flagged for so long, I think a lot of us were talking about the potential that we may not see another caution.
right? But one other factor that we're forgetting too is that while this was going on, Ross Chastain was right there. So it wasn't
Exactly.
like
You had two drivers racing for the lead of the race.
Yeah, I say it wasn't like Kyle was just trying to get by Chase and that was
It wasn't like it wasn't like Larson last week where Larson had a half track lead.
Yeah. My last question on this topic, and I will start this off with Ryan, because Kyle Busch is his favorite driver. Will Kyle Busch win a race before 2024 is over to keep his streak alive, or is it time for him to get ready to hang it up?
Well, I certainly don't think it's time for him to hang it up quite yet, because he's certainly down the stretch has shown that he can do it. But I also think he's getting into a situation where, because there's no doubt he knows that the streak is on the line. And obviously, especially this one, because it would be 20 years, of winning a race each and every year. I mean, that's a big number to hit as well. If it was just 20, if it was say 21 or 22, it wouldn't be as impactful as it being the 20th. So, if he doesn't win at Talladega this week, I don't think he does win a race down the stretch. I think the cars aren't quite good enough, but again, in terms of him retiring, I think he's still competitive, and clearly, over the last month and a half, we've seen it from him, that when he's given a car that can race up front, I mean, basically ever since the Indianapolis race, because he was competitive at Indianapolis, obviously made a over-aggressive decision there, especially where he was still in potential playoff position. Then after the 2-week break for the Olympics, we had the Richmond race where he finished top 10. Then we had the back-to-back runner-up finishes at Daytona and Darlington, where easily he could have won one or both of those races if things fall ever so slightly differently. And just kind of mentioning that that's another incident where Briscoe and Kyle Busch have raced each other a lot recently.
Right.
But I certainly think Kyle he's definitely competitive, and again, I think it's more so the RCR equipment letting him down versus him letting RCR's equipment down, because it's not like RCR has championship level cars that he's wasting.
Yeah. And that was one thing that was brought up on another podcast that I listened to, is the fact that Kyle and Chase battled at Darlington, and Kyle, it felt like, really cut Briscoe a break,
Yep.
with him winning and getting into the playoffs
didn't force
and stuff.
the issue there.
Right, and then Briscoe didn't really do Kyle any favors at Kansas this past weekend.
Yeah, and again, it's not like we're asking him to lay over while leading the race. We're just asking him as a lap down car while he's had two drivers battling for position right behind him. Now, obviously, the caveat there is that Ross Chastain is also not a non-playoff driver. But I feel like, similar to how the leader, when he comes up on two lap cars battling for position, the leader is typically expected to slow down and lay up for the two cars battling for position. Similarly, I think the lap down cars, especially if there's a battle for the lead, shouldn't be going out of their way to make these crazy blocks or dicey moves like that onto them. But ultimately, again, I think Kyle Busch will be fine. The question is, what does he do after next year? Yeah. As to whether or not he stays at RCR or if he goes somewhere else for 2026. Right. But we know he's at RCR for 2025 for sure. And again, I think this weekend is make or break for the record for him.
Yeah. All right, we are going to now move into our green flags and black flags.
I don't think everybody else got a chance to answer the question about whether or not Kyle wins before the end of the season.
Yep, that's my bad. Jayme, do you have any thoughts on that?
Looking at the last remaining races that are on the schedule, we're looking at Dega, Charlotte, Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, Phoenix. If he does not get it done at Talladega, which is another, again, like a wild card track, the only other opportunity that I would say that he has at getting a win would most likely be Vegas.
Yeah, and I mean, Vegas has not been his best mile and a half over the years. He does have a win or two there, but yeah, that has not been his best mile and a half.
Yeah, it's not encouraging by any stretch of the imagination. But
and then
out of the remaining tracks, that would probably
see
be
him contending at Phoenix. Problem is because it's the final race of the season. You're almost certainly going to see the championship Ford dominate again.
Yeah, like I said, based off of the remaining tracks, like I'm not expecting him to do well at the road course. I'm not expecting him to be a top 5 car at Homestead. He could surprise us at Martinsville, but
yeah, Martinsville and Phoenix, I would say, are his best 2 tracks remaining after Dega.
Yep, but if he doesn't get it done at Dega, it would be Vegas. If it's not Vegas, he ain't winning this year.
I'd honestly say he's probably more likely to win Martinsville or Phoenix before Vegas.
I don't know about
that. Tyler, what about you?
I personally don't think he's going to win another race this season, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it. The only best shot he has is at Dega, but that's anybody's game. Anybody can win that track.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I typically try not to say it when I'm talking about, what is so-and-so's best track. I try to avoid saying Daytona or Talladega, even though for most people, it kind of is their best opportunity for a win. Just because there's only one winner of that race, and it could legitimately be one of 40 cars. Like, legitimately, we could see Timmy Hill go and win or JJ Yaley go and win the Cup race at Talladega.
I would love a Timmy Hill win.
And while yes, it is probably the most out there of the options, would anyone really be overly surprised if, say, a JJ Yaley or Timmy Hill came out of the smoke with the win?
Or Justin Haley or.
Yeah,
all y'all
Justin
and
Haley,
you're
we've seen do
youngins.
it.
Let's go with the vet. Let's go Jimmy Johnson.
Jimmy's not in the race.
Oh, well, there's that.
But if
that one is quite literally impossible.
Oh,
but JJ Yaley's an older guy. I said JJ Yaley. His rookie year was 06. He was a rookie back with Hamlin at Joe Gibbs Racing.
I vote BJ McLeod.
Yeah, BJ McLeod, Anthony Alfredo for a part-timer as well. That would be your young guy to root for.
Well, all right, we are going to now move into our green flags and black flags.
Maybe Cody Ware wins.
Maybe. For those of you who are just now listening to this podcast, green flags is something that you liked during the race weekend, and black flags is something that you did not like. And we're going to kick it off with Jayme.
Well, I am a fan of Melon Man, so that's going to be my green flag. Getting to see a smashed watermelon on the racetrack is always a fun time for me. Not gonna lie, during the summer, if I get a hold of, I'll buy myself an extra watermelon just to mess with my family and make them think that I just completely ruined a good watermelon at a family picnic. And I will literally stay on top of a picnic table and just throw it on the ground and watch my parents' face of, why did you just do that to our only watermelon? It is the best feeling in the world. So thank you to Ross Chastain for giving me that idea. But it's good to see him get a win. He puts a lot of pressure on himself, and especially when we're talking about his team out there in Trackhouse, they do a lot of good things. So it's good to see them get a win and just continue their progression as a company, as a race team, and just good to see a hardworking driver that, yes, he can be overdoing it from week to week, but he is a smart racer, and I think he brings the right type of aggressiveness that's needed for today's day and age in racing. As far as my black flag is concerned, I'm throwing that out to Harrison Burton and Ty Dillon for wrecking on the opening stinking lap. Like, green flag, get into the corner, let's go ahead and just ruin a bunch of people's days. Josh Berry was collected, Jimmy Johnson was in that, Chase Elliott got some damage from it.
That's another one of those questions, though, is who was really to blame, because Busher was way off the pace and backing up really quick.
Like I said, that's why I said both of them. I'm not willing to put the blame on either one, but boo on you for wrecking on the very first lap and making the day harder for Chase Elliott. So, boo to you.
All right. Tyler, what are yours?
Oh, I have a couple. Yeah, we gotta wait. So my green flag was in general the racing in general, the product of the racing. And I have to agree with Jayme. Ross Chastain's awesome.
Melon Man!
But, and when it comes to my black flags, I'm going to have to give my black flags to Kyle Busch. Just because...
Why you gotta kick the man while he's down?
Because, I mean, to be fair, he did it to himself.
All right.
I think he's trying to overcompensate for a crappy car. I think that's a lot of his problem, is he's trying to overdrive a car that can't. But, yeah, my black flag's going to Kyle Busch.
All right. What about you, Ryan? Oh, no.
Oh, no. Not again, Ryan.
We got Robot Ryan again.
I thought we were past this.
All right. While we wait on that, I'll go ahead and give mine. My green flag goes to Alex Bowman for yet another good performance. He came into the second round of the playoffs below the cut line, and he got himself above the cut line. He is 8 points up. Just continuing a really, really good start to the playoffs. My black flag, I believe no one said it. My black flag goes to Justin Haley, who made his first race in the 7 car, and going down the backstretch just turned dead left because he didn't listen to what his spotter said and just completely annihilated himself and John Hunter Nemechek and took them both out of contention. Maybe it wasn't a Corey LaJoie thing. Ryan, are you back?
I don't think he is. Looks like he's leaving, and then he's probably going to rejoin here in a sec.
Yep, he's trying.
He is trying.
All right, well, we will, if he's able to talk again, we will come back to it. It is Talladega week. It is Talladega week, as previously mentioned. As we know, anybody can win at Talladega. It is probably the biggest wild card race of the playoffs. We are going to now go into our race picks. I have our names on the wheel here, if you guys can see it.
Got my trivia.
Oh, yep, we will do that right after picks.
Okay.
So first spin of the wheel will land on Jayme.
Wow. Of course, I get the first pick on a track that's such a wild card. Let's see. Who's in playoffs that could really benefit from a good day that may not necessarily want to be aggressive, but may have to get aggressive? I'm gonna go with Joey Logano. Sitting 8th in points, only 4 to the good. He typically does pretty decent at restrictor plate tracks. So I think he's gonna be pushing the envelope to make sure that he stays up front for the majority of the race.
Alrighty. Next spin on the wheel goes to me. And I am going to pick the driver who has been involved in some of the closest finishes in the fall Talladega race. I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney.
Good pick.
My wife's pissed over here because I picked Blaney.
All right, I'm back.
Yay!
There we go. And just in time, just in time because you just landed on the wheel, sir. It's your turn to pick.
All right. By the way, this is definitely a Discord issue, not a my internet issue, because I swapped over to my computer and I'm hardwired, and I'm still having and before I had the problem.
All right. So Jayme picked Logano. I just picked Blaney. So it is your turn.
Okay. So you basically have given me the ultimatum. Which of my favorite guys do I pick? Who do I want to curse? McDowell, Kyle Busch, or Stenhouse? I'm gonna pick one of them, and one of them is gonna be cursed, and I've picked him each and every plate race. I'm gonna go ahead and stick with him. I'm gonna stick with McDowell, and we'll see if that goes terribly.
Alrighty. And the last pick will go to Mr. Tyler.
I'm going with the spring winner, Tyler Reddick.
You said who did you say? Tyler Reddick?
Yeah, spring winner, Reddick.
All right. So we will backtrack real quick. Ryan, why don't you give us your green flags and black flags real quick?
All right. So I was gonna say the Melon Man Smash, but out of the in the interest of diversity, I'm gonna go ahead and try and think of something else. On the weekend. My black flag, I'm gonna give it to the air that ended up taking Kyle Busch's car around, whether you want to blame Kyle Busch or not for that. I think that it was at the very least 50-50 responsibility on Briscoe versus Kyle Busch, and if not, maybe even a little bit more blame on to Briscoe, considering he had 2 leaders right there. But for my green flag on the weekend, you know what? Let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and shout out somebody. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna pick somebody else from the top 5 to go ahead and shout out.
I can give an honorable mention if you don't choose him.
I'll come up with something for a storyline. There we go. Ty Gibbs on the top 5 here at Kansas, continuing to build towards a potential first win. He's been looking fast, but obviously he got eliminated from the playoffs last week and won't be able to get a championship in his second season.
Huzzah!
All right.
But there we go.
But honorable mention to William Byron. Yep, honorable mention to William Byron.
Yeah.
Had a fantastic day. Set himself up real nice to where, like, yes,
I believe you mean William Byron Jr., by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Here's the one I definitely could have shouted out, actually. I hadn't looked down far enough. Zane Smith getting another top 10 finish in that number 71 car.
There you go.
Huzzah!
He was running top 5 there for a little bit.
Yep.
All right. So as our last topic, to celebrate the return of Jayme to the podcast. I know he has a lot going on in his personal life and stuff, and he can't make it all the time, but we are going to do another edition of Jayme's Trivia. Jayme, what do you have for us tonight?
Well, it is Talladega week, and Talladega is known for the big one. So much so that when you go to a race, you can literally get a giant meatball in a cup of spaghetti that they call the big one. So, on that theme and it being Talladega.
I thought the big one was a burger.
Nope. Well, at least when I went, it was a giant meatball.
I just had seen the big one on the menu and I just assumed it was a gigantic burger. I've never actually been to the track.
You would think, but nope. It's a spaghetti dinner with one giant meatball on top. And
all right.
that meatball is about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds.
All right.
But since the 2K era, what wreck at Talladega had the most cars involved? What was that number of cars involved?
2002.
So the most cars in a single wreck, not the most cars officially DNF'd from a race?
Since the year 2000.
Alright. Yeah, we were talking about most cars overall DNF'd. I know the answer, but
2002 Busch Series, and 312, 24 cars.
You said 24 cars?
Oh, we only have to count we only have to guess the number of cars involved?
Yes, only the cars.
Oh, I thought you were gonna have us guess the year and the crash involved in the series, and I was like, oh, great.
No. Well, Tyler was close to it, but he is wrong.
Alright.
It is that same race, but the number of cars was wrong.
Alright, I'm gonna say it was higher. I'm gonna say like 26 cars involved.
What do you think, Greg?
Well, I was going to say the 2012 Fall Talladega race.
Well, but he was including extended series races too, which is what threw the numbers off.
Yep. My name is Jayme. That's what I do.
I'm going to say 29.
So Greg was the closest.
More than 30?
It was. So the largest wreck in modern NASCAR history at Talladega occurred on lap 14 of the 2002 Aaron's 312 when 31 cars were involved in that wreck.
Yep. As soon as you said 2002, I'm like, yep, I said the wrong number. I knew there was more cars involved.
Wow. Is that the one? Is that the one where Sauter was driving the AC Delco car and he ended up upside down?
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I was like 1 or 2 years old at the time of the wreck. So.
I did this get credit for saying the right year.
You can get some brownie points for knowing the race and year, but you still got it wrong with the number.
Hey, Jayme, here's a trivia question for you off the NASCAR Fan Rewards app for the bonus 10 points on the week. What year did Dale Earnhardt win his final race at Talladega? We should all know this one. Pretty easy.
2000.
Yep.
I see.
I figured while we were doing trivia, I'd go ahead and see what the trivia question was for the week over on the NASCAR Fan Rewards app.
Not gonna lie, there was a small part of me that was gonna cheat one day and just use the NASCAR Fan Rewards trivia, but that's just being lazy, and I like coming up with.
Sometimes it's actually pretty good. Last week's Kansas one was actually pretty interesting. Which driver finished second to Joe Nemechek in the 2007 Kansas race or something?
Yeah, wasn't it like Ricky Rudd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the right answer.
Oh, wow.
But
see,
yeah,
when you said that, Jayme, I was thinking the 2012 Fall Talladega race when Stewart made that block on Michael Waltrip and basically wrecked the whole field except for like 3 cars coming to the finish.
Yeah, but there were
Yeah, I
probably
remember
already
that.
cars DNF'd out of that, so there were probably not 30 cars on the track at that point to where it couldn't be that many.
There was
if you
about
go
like
back,
20. There was like 20 to 25 in that wreck, I believe.
Yeah. Same
I
thing
was
with
gonna say
like,
if you go back and look at that replay, it looks like there was about 35 cars out there.
but yeah, when it comes to the race with the most DNFs though, I think that one goes to the Fall Talladega race of 2017 where there were like 6, 7 cars on the track at the finish for Talladega finishes.
Yep, and it was like the cripple leading the cripple.
Yeah, and it
Yep.
was
With only
so
like
close
one
to being
car
a
that
Dale,
didn't.
and I was rooting so hard for Dale Jr. in that race, and ultimately he came up just short.
Yep. Trust me,
Yeah.
I was pulling for him.
Especially since I didn't like Brad Keselowski at the time. I certainly wasn't pulling for Keselowski to win that thing.
At that time? You mean you like him now?
I like him a little bit more now because I just like Roush Fenway as a whole, and him being a part of that softens the stance there compared to him at Penske. He's still my least favorite Roush driver, but back then I think he was probably my least favorite Penske driver. Logano is easily that now.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our show tonight. As always, a big thank you to all of our sponsors, W Energy, Fanatics, Sleeves, Century PC, OTV, Duke Cannon, Bulletproof Coffee. Thank you guys very much for sponsoring us. Please be sure to check out their links in our podcast description.
And the Alkali Project.
Yes, and the Alkali Project. How could I forget them? But until next time, I'm Greg, and for Ryan, Tyler, and Jayme, this has been The Lap Down, and we will see you guys after a wild weekend at Talladega. Deuces!
Deuces!